Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And as always, a huge thanks to our community partners, Prime 47 Downtown, Tesco, and Shepherd Community Center. Without the support of these loving organizations, we would not be able to be with you every night, Thursdays at 9:30 on WHMB TV 40. Well, as always, we have a great show for you. Tonight, our guest is a former school superintendent and now with the Central Indiana Educational Service Center, Dr. Andy Melin.
Thank you.
Andy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, you have spent your whole career in education, and you've been really all over the state. Tell us a little bit about where you've been to give us the context, give our viewers the context of the vast amount of experience you've had with students.
Well, yes, thank you. I started in 1989 at New Haven High School in the Fort Wayne area, East Allen County Schools. Spent really a lot of years there. I think about 16 years. I actually was a high school teacher, coach, advisor, and became a counselor. I was a high school counselor there, and to this day, one of my favorite positions I've held. Became assistant principal and dean and principal there, and also assistant superintendent. I transitioned to Peru, Indiana to be a superintendent there for a few years, Valparaiso, Indiana to be a superintendent there, and then the last superintendency was in Greater Clark County Schools, which is in southeast Indiana, right across from Louisville, Kentucky. Spent a year at the Department of Ed as its Chief Innovation Officer before transitioning to the Central Indiana Educational Service Center, where I'm the Executive Director. So I've been around the state.
Tell me about the difference from being in the school setting as a principal, an assistant principal, then transitioning to superintendent, then being with the Department of Education. What was that like?
I will tell you, it's both very positive from the perspective of you can have a greater influence on people, but the main reason I got into education was because I really wanted to help kids.
Yeah.
So the more you go up on that administrative ladder, the less time you're spending directly impacting students. So as a superintendent, one of the things I tried to do often was get into our schools and get into classrooms. And I'd go to events because I wanted to be around them. It was really selfish on my part. I wanted to be around our students. But I wanted them to see that I cared about them. And to me, that's really important as an educator. We always have to remember what is our mission, our primary purpose, and that is we're there to serve students and help to enhance them as citizens and human beings to be successful.
And that is a job that has gotten incredibly more difficult since 1989, I would imagine. You've spanned your career, spanned 30 plus years so far. What are some of the changes you've seen in students and in helping them and being connected to them, maybe especially in the mental health arena over those 30 plus years?
You know, I think it would be true that students have always needed to get more attention in terms of their own well-being. It's always been true. It was as true in 1989 as it is today. But I think it's even more complicated today. There's more intensity in terms of student need. It's more critical. The pandemic itself, the sense of isolation, students being connected still in a way through social media and all of those things, but that probably over the years has been the greatest difference I've seen. It seems like students at times seem to be more comfortable in that, living in that virtual space as opposed to that face-to-face environment. And to me, there are a lot of potential drawbacks to that.
Well, I've often thought, and even my wife and I will joke occasionally, if we had cell phones when we were in high school, that would have been a really bad idea. Like I would not have handled that very well. And now you have kids long before high school with cell phones. It creates this entirely different world for them. Is that the biggest difference? I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, technology has changed so much. Is that the biggest difference, or have you seen other differences from generation to generation?
I do think that that's a significant variable that has occurred. I've seen over time when cell phones became prevalent in the school setting, and when you started to see elementary students with cell phones, that was very concerning to me. Because when students were in school, you want them to focus on the content that's being provided to them. And then there were always, it was sort of an entitlement. Cell phones became an entitlement. Students felt they were entitled to have their cell phone in the school environment. And so oftentimes we had to make rules so that those students were not breaking those cell phones out during a class period, for example.
Right.
And so there are pros and cons to the technology, right? Pros and cons. But in the environment, there's such an it's easier to get distracted from what the real purpose is while students are actually in that school setting.
Yeah, my wife is a teacher in the Fort Wayne area, and she was telling me recently that it really has changed the way you teach, because it used to be that you had to give kids information. Now they have the entire world in their hands. They can get any information they want. It's your job to help them understand the information, process the information, and give them context around the information. It's changed the teacher's role, it's changed the superintendent's role, the principal's role. Every role seems to have changed because of the way technology has changed our world.
It's 100%, that's 100% accurate. You know, if people want information, it's at a touch of a button.
Right.
So now educationally, in a way, I think a positive is that we need to focus our efforts not on content as much as skills. What skills can we embed in our students, whether that's literacy skills, numeracy skills, or life skills? How can we help students be more successful and being persistent and respectful? And those soft skills that some people, I prefer to call them success skills, because if students possess those skills, regardless of their particular talents, they'll be successful whatever choice they make in life. So I'm a big believer in that whole idea of let's embed these success skills in students, starting from the first time we get them into our organization as preschoolers or kindergarten students. Let's start embedding those, but let's be consistent with them. And I've done that in my superintendencies, to embed these character skills or success skills in students. So regardless of what school they attended, regardless of transitioning from elementary to middle to high, those skills were consistent because kids need consistency.
So true. Great conversation with Dr. Andy Melin. We're going to continue it when we come back. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. I'm Curtis Smith. We're here with Dr. Andy Melin tonight, continuing our conversation. Andy, you were talking right before the break about soft skills or success skills and how you've got to be intentional and consistent in getting them into kids' lives early and often. How do you do that? Practically speaking, how in the school setting especially do you implement those success skills into the lives of young people?
It really starts when I was superintendent in Greater Clark County Schools. We brought a group of community leaders together, and we started with the conversation, how can we better work together to improve our schools and our community? So we had about 100 stakeholders, and we talked about, at that time, work ethic skills. How can we embed work ethic skills in students? Well, over a series of months, we kept working on this process, and we developed what was called the PRIDE program. In the PRIDE program were 5 basic character skills or success skills that the community defined. That was persistence, respectfulness, initiative, dependability, and efficiency. So it was decided by our community and that those would be the skills we'd focus on. And what we did in our schools, we had PRIDE teams made up of teachers and administrators. We would track data. We would make sure that we start every school year with what does PRIDE mean? What does persistence really mean? Students come from many different backgrounds.
Right.
So how do you not only define that term, but how do you affirm it in students? It wasn't a curriculum. This was a culture. So we created a culture in our school system where these things were embedded. A student might be walking down the hall. They pick up a piece of paper. They weren't told to do that. They did it on their own. If an adult sees that, great job. Way to be respectful to our school. We appreciate you picking up that piece of paper. So it was those kinds of affirmational impacts. The great thing is, over a 4-year period, our disciplinary referrals reduced from 11,000 to 6,400.
Wow.
And our academic grade, our letter grade for our district, went from a low C minus to a high B plus.
Wow.
So the impact of that emphasis. So to me, if you have an organization full of people of great character, you're going to succeed. That's not necessarily true if you have a very talented organization that lacks character.
That's a great point. So true. We talked about your career largely spent in the school setting, but now outside of it, what are you doing now? What is it that you guys do? How do you invest into kids and the future generations outside of the school setting?
Thank you for asking the question, because I'll be honest, many people, when you talk about educational service centers, they have absolutely no clue what that is or what we do. So if I can put it in a context, there are 9 service centers in Indiana.
Okay.
We are the largest. We cover metropolitan Indianapolis. We have districts that are members of our service center. We have 29 school systems that are available, that are members.
Okay.
3 associate members. What we do is we try to meet their needs by providing academic and operational services to them. So it could be professional development that's needed. We have a team of professional development experts through what we call Keep Indiana Learning. And we can go into school systems and support them in terms of professional learning for their staff. We also have a cooperative purchasing program, so we can help districts save money because we have a lot of statewide partnerships. So if they come through us, we can reduce their cost. What's unique about us is we have an Indiana Online program, and it's been in existence for, I think we're going into our 18th year. And this past year, we served over 30,000 students with online coursework. It could be one course, it could be a number of courses. But we serve a lot of students by providing that online course environment. We have a media services program. We produce videos for districts that might, be good PR opportunities to sort of talk about the district. So those are the kinds of things we do.
So a district becomes a member, and then do they tell you their needs specifically, or do you say, here's something we're seeing in a lot of other places, you may need this, or is it a little bit of both?
It is a little bit of both, because those services I just mentioned have been in place. But I go out annually and I meet with the superintendents one-on-one. And sometimes I have their administrative teams there, and I'm asking them questions. Here's how you're using us now. Here's how you might be able to better engage with us to improve. But more importantly, where are we not meeting your needs? Because we're all there to serve and support our districts, right? So we need to be asking that question. And we've created new programs and services just from listening to what our districts need.
You earlier mentioned the higher you get up the ladder, the more removed you are from students. Do you still feel that, or do you feel like in your current work you really are making a tangible, real difference, and you feel some connectivity there with the kids?
I do feel some connectivity still, not to the point where I'm directly interacting with students, but the services that we provide are directly impacting students. So that Indiana Online program, we have the largest driver education program in the state of Indiana that we run out of our center. So our students, that serves about 4,500 students a year.
Goodness.
So we are serving students, we are supporting educators, and by doing that, hopefully, we're continuing to enhance school systems, which enhances their communities. And so we're trying to make a difference, and a lot of our programs are not just for Central Indiana. A lot of things we do, because of our size, we're able to go and help support other school systems around the state.
That's wonderful. Dr. Andy Melin, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thanks for all the work you're doing in the lives of the next generation to come.
My pleasure, thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we bring you our Beacon of Hope segment. Tonight, Crosswinds executive Gordon Haynes helps us think through how we can choose joy and not fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others.
Hi, my name's Gordon. I'm a member of the Crosswinds executive team. Did you know life is hard? It wouldn't surprise you to know that anxiety, is at an all-time level in the United States today. Between COVID, politics, inflation, and just everyday life, there are lots of challenges. If you look at social media, there are people that believe nobody else is struggling except me because they forget that social media is the highlight reel. It isn't about people's everyday lives. If you are a person that lives in America and you have pets, you have family, you have parents, you have a job, at some point you're struggling. We all struggle. That is life. There are people that believe and live by the mantra of, when this happens, I'll finally be happy. When I lose 10 pounds, when I gain 10 pounds, when I get that car I want, when I get that job I want, when I finally get that house I want, I will finally be happy. And what we're losing track of is that God wants us to be happy every day. He wants us to find joy in the journey. Life is about the journey and seeking joy. God wants us to have that joy. Jesus Christ died on the cross for us so that we could have that joy. So I'm going to encourage you to realize that you can't control the circumstances of life, but you do get to choose how you react to those circumstances. I heard an analogy that I really liked, the difference between a hummingbird and a vulture. A vulture spends its time flying everywhere all day long, looking for dead things to eat. A hummingbird spends its day flying around, looking for sweet things, looking for nectar. And guess what? A vulture finds dead things every day. And guess what? A hummingbird finds sweet things, nectar, every day. What are you looking for every day? Are you looking for reasons to be unhappy, reasons to be offended, reasons to be a victim? If you are, you'll find those things. I believe that if you choose to look for the joy and look for happiness in your life, you will find that, and that's the choice I make. Have a great day.
Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. It's time for our weekly Counseling Corner segment, and tonight, Brendan Loniger joins us to talk about how we can find meaning and purpose in our lives.
Hi, my name is Brendan, and I am a therapist with Crosswinds Counseling. One of the questions that I sometimes come across as I'm working with people is questions about meaning and purpose in life. There can be questions about, how do I make my life more meaningful? Is my life currently full of purpose? Are the things that I'm doing working in that way for me? And one of my favorite ways to kind of explore this is to do an exercise that I'm going to show you here shortly. The place that I pull this exercise from is something called existentialism. And basically, I chose existentialism as a theory to work from in counseling because it answers this question in a really cool way. So existentialism would say that the answer to our questions about meaning are rooted in our relationships. And it would say that we have 4 different types of relationship. So we have our relationship with self, our relationship with others, our relationship with the world, and our relationship with God or spirituality. Now, when we look at these different relationships, what I then like to do is draw out a tree. Now, one thing that we're all kind of familiar with is how a tree looks. Mine kind of looks like broccoli sometimes. But on here, we'll notice that there are different parts. We have the trunk, we have roots, and we have the leaves. And I think that each of these relationships can correspond to a different part on the tree, but that can look different for each person. So with that in mind, the next part of the exercise is to take each of your relationships and place them somewhere on the tree. And we kind of start to see the analogy fall into place. There are going to be some relationships that are more important. Not that each one is not important, but we tend to place a higher value on one or two relationships. So for example, you may put God or spirituality at the root of your tree of meaning. You might place your relationship with others here at the trunk because it's really important to engage with other people. So once you have taken each of those relationships and placed them at a certain spot on the tree, you can begin to reflect on the quality of those relationships or how you're engaging in them. There will probably be some pieces that you find that you're doing really well in those relationships, and there might be some areas you find that there's areas to grow. And once we begin to reflect on those areas of growth and we start to lean in, we'll notice that our tree of meaning can begin to grow. And that's part of what makes our life meaningful, is how we engage in those relationships.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for those thoughts, and thanks for helping us define purpose. It's something we all want to do, sometimes very difficult. Well, as we close tonight, just a couple of thank yous here. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Thanks to our sponsors, Tesco, Shepherd Community Center, and Prime 47 Downtown. And of course, thanks to our friends here at WHMB TV 40. We'll be back next Thursday night at 9:30. We'll see you then. Stay safe and be blessed.